Hey there, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of the Halfway Through the Heat Wrestling Podcast, the most important and largest and most prestigious Trans-Pacific Wrestling Podcast. And I am joined today by my co-host, Tom. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing great. We're back. We had some technical difficulties, and then I had to travel for work, so we've been sporadic.
Yeah,
But much like TNA, we've risen from the ashes. We've beaten the odds, and we're back.
we have beaten the odds, B-E-E-T.
Yeah, that's right. We've beaten the odds.
But I just want to point out that Tom was off from the podcast to have some kind of relationship with a certain organization that's related to all types of conspiracy theories. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, but watch out for Tom.
Yeah, and not only that, but that organization has now certified me in something, and I won't talk about what that is.
Yeah. I mean, it's no joke. Tom is Tom is
No,
dealing
it's
with
not.
some shady characters.
It's true. It's true. New World Order, and it's not the wrestling New World Order. I've never even met those guys. I want to clarify. Although I'd be happy to be certified by the NWO wrestling in something. I don't know what.
You're
In being too sweet.
you're the dude who carries Scott Norton's bag.
um. Yeah. So this is it's good to be back, especially now because normally the last I don't know few podcasts we've done, we've really struggled with our first segment, which is saying something positive about Raw.
Yeah,
That's no struggle
and
this week.
had we done the podcast last week, it would have been a horrible struggle.
I literally fell asleep watching Raw last week.
Yeah, it was last week was really bad. But we're back with some positivity because this week had some positive things.
It certainly did. And not only us, but lots of people are positive about this week's Raw. What, Joe, is your top positive thing about Raw?
Um I, I think like with a lot of people, it's that they finally seem to have got the timing right for putting the title on Roman Reigns.
Yes.
In like it seems, if you think about it, it seems like it's really slapdash. Like suddenly he got over at the pay-per-view, and then like the next day they're just like, do it now, do it now. And but like even then, like it's actually the right timing. So like you feel like, oh, well, it's kind of out of nowhere, and they had a title change on Raw. That's kind of not not a common occurrence, but you think like it seems like wild flailing, but in a good direction. So you feel like, oh, well, even if it's wild flailing, it's still worked out for the better. So good job, Raw.
Good job, Raw. And how fitting that he won the title in Philadelphia, the city that booed him out of the building when he won the Royal Rumble in January.
Yeah, that's true. It is fitting that like they cheered his win too. It wasn't they, like he was over in Philadelphia that booed him out of the building not less than a year ago, right?
Yeah, it was January of 2015.
So
Um, so Philly, which is a tough wrestling crowd, Philly embraced Roman Reigns. The Roman Empire begins in Philly. That's a great storyline, and it happened completely organically too. This time they didn't force it on us, like you said. It just seemed like something that it could have been wild flailing, but if so, it's wild flailing that worked.
yeah, that's good. Glad something's working on Raw.
Um, so obviously I like that too, but I will also say in addition, my positive thing was the match on Raw between the ECW originals and the Wyatt family.
That I think they're doing a really good job with that. Like,
They really
and
are.
strangely, Tommy Dreamer's a really good promo. Like,
He is,
you're
yeah.
just like, where did that come from? Tommy Dreamer? I think like he was saying he's not going to be on TV anymore, but he was on
I
Raw.
hope I hope they keep him around, at least for a little while, because and also I like that they've been letting the Wyatt family win, right? So it's not like you don't have these guys who are losing to these middle-aged guys, but they're credible opponents nonetheless, right? Like the Wyatt family, they're not beating tomato cans, they're beating some of the most famous guys in recent wrestling history, but they're beating them. That's the thing. Like they're not killing the young guys push by having like these old men go over them. And I like the way they've done it. It's been they had a good match at the pay-per-view, but the Raw match was like a lot of fun to watch. Like those guys work really well. The ECW guys still, and I don't know. I found myself excited, and especially in Philadelphia, seeing Tommy Dreamer come out and the Dudley Boys and Rhino, and getting this huge ovation from the crowd. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's another good point. Those are, because I like all those guys. I really like the Wyatt family, and I like those ECW guys. So that I think they had a good match at the pay per view too, even though it was like not just those guys.
Yeah, and the pay per view, we should talk about it briefly. Everyone has seen it by this point. The pay per view was good. I mean, the pay per view might have been the best WWE pay per view of the year.
Like the thing with it is that I don't want to go that far only because like I went into it thinking like it was like going to be a throwaway garbage show, and when
Right.
you look at the on paper, if you looked at it before the show, you're just like, looking at it, I was like, this is gonna suck. Jesus, who's gonna watch this?
I
And then
know.
like when I actually watched it, I thought these were some really good matches. Like, and like I'm not gonna go as far as to say it was one of the best pay-per-views, only because like I had such low expectations that like even a mediocre pay-per-view probably would have like blown me away. So I'm
That's true.
so I'm not sure. Like I'd probably, in all honesty, I'd have to go back and watch it like in 2 weeks or so and see if like it's still like something I'm super excited for. But man, the it was like a way better than I had expected it to be. But in pursuit of honesty, I guess I expected it to be awful.
Yeah, I'm glad in retrospect that we didn't have a show last week because it would have been us just shitting all over the pay per view in advance, and then we would have looked really stupid
That's true.
having to come back and being like, "Oh, that was a really good pay per view."
Yeah, because it really would have been like that because looking at the what was happening on the pay-per-view, it was just, man, this is going to be terrible. And nope, we would have been 100% wrong because it was
I
it
know.
was there were a lot of good matches. I mean, there wasn't like not every match was a good match, but the,
No,
there were some
but that
the good ones were really good. That was
that ladder match was like, I mean, I'm so bored with ladder matches because you see the same spots in every single ladder match. They actually found new stuff to do in a ladder match.
yeah, that um uh, I was afraid those Lucha Dragon guys were going to die.
Oh my God, when Callisto did the Salida del Sol off the top of the ladder, I mean, that was a legitimate holy shit moment where like sitting at home watching it, like like clasped my hands to the side of my face and went, "Oh no!" and he looked like he almost died there. That was amazing. That's one of those like crazy spots you see in an indie show, and you're like, these guys are never going to do that if they get to WWE.
That's it. That's a legitimate "please don't die" chant.
It is a legitimate "please don't die" chant. Um, but all those guys in that match worked, and then I loved the ending. I loved the ending with Xavier Woods throwing the trombone and hitting Callista. The New Day are my favorite people on the roster right now, and they keep topping themselves.
Yeah, the New Day is really great, and um, there were rumors that they were going to keep them together for a really long time because their merchandise was selling so well. Which whatever. I don't care about the reason. Just keep them together.
I know. Imagine that, like, not breaking up a tag team because it's popular. Imagine that crazy logic. Hey, people like this. Let's not take it away from them. Boy, what a brilliant move. God. Um, yeah. So I mean, the WWE has had a bad 2015, and some of that is beyond its control. A lot of injuries this year to some of its best people, and absences that were not injury related, but were absences nonetheless, like Cena and Lesnar. Um, and so ending the year on this note has actually been pretty good, and I'm super psyched that they'll change the world title on Raw. Like that's a reason to watch Raw. Because in the past, you knew. I mean, it just seems like for years it's been nothing really interesting is going to happen on Raw. I can just watch the pay-per-views and read, the Raw recap on Cage Side Seats or something, and I'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's it's good that they're willing to change the. I mean, they used to do it before all the time. It used to be a thing. I mean, remember that was the big thing that like WCW had announced like, oh, Mick Foley's going to win the title on Raw tonight.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to put butts in the seats, and it did. Um, yeah, so it was a good pay-per-view, a good Raw. We'll see what happens down the road. The only down note for me was that Kevin Owens lost the Intercontinental Championship.
Yeah, that was not unexpected. I didn't think it was going to be he was going to keep it only because, you know, fangirls squeeing.
Oh man, when Ambrose lost his shirt in that match, I was watching with Mark. It was like there's going to be so much sex stuff about this, and I mean, it's like I just like glimpsed at Tumblr and thought, I can't. I'm just gonna. I need a safe search function on. I can't handle this.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect. But yeah, I think it's not a bad move really. What I was going to talk about last week about Raw kind of fits into this. I hope they stop referring to Roman Reigns and the Uso brothers and uh, what I'm forgetting his name. We just said it.
Oh, Dean
Dean
Ambrose.
Ambrose as the family because
Oh,
because oh my God, don't 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 refer to your babyface group as the family.
yeah, they've had. So explain in case people don't know what the family is. Explain
Okay.
the good listeners out there what the
Yeah,
family is and why it's not.
probably
Yeah.
most people aren't gonna understand why I'm like complaining about this. The family was formerly the Children of God, which is like this cult who are I think one of their most famous things is the flirty fishing, which is like basically they have like people recruiting for their church who are like sexy women who would like have sex with people in order to get them to join the cult. And they've been implicated in all these things like child abduction and pedophilia and like all these like weird kind of like um crimes and things. It's just like and like they were the Children of God and they changed their name to the Family and now they're the Family International. But you know when someone says the Family to me, immediately I'm thinking like child abduction. It's like
Yeah, I mean, I also think Manson.
oh yeah, that too is another one where like um for something like the Wyatts, like the Wyatt family, makes sense because you think like, oh, the Manson family, Wyatt family, they're like a weird cult. That's kind of the
Right.
gimmick.
No,
That's the
that's
gimmick,
a good
though.
one. Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to be going for. But man, for the Roman Reigns group there, and like they haven't really been referring to them that way. Like they only kind of briefly did on Raw, but the like I guess websites were saying that they were trying to push that as the name to refer to them as. And like websites were referring to them that way. And I thought like, oh, okay, that's the worst possible choice you could have made.
Yeah.
Like,
Remember the submission sorority?
yeah, another one, another terrible decision. It's like the people who are making the names for these people don't have Google.
No, it's true. Yeah. Like and no one on the staff or anything can be like, oh, actually, like it's so weird.
Yeah, it's like there's I like to imagine that it's like you imagine you're like working at a newspaper and you have all these people handling your various departments. Like, okay, you're going to work on local government, you're going to work on I don't know, science, and then you have got like the dude who's doing sports, and he's kind of like a mouth breathing, chunk. I don't know how to explain this person, but like he's there, and he's the one who's deciding on the names for everyone. But he's just like so lazy about everything. He's just kind of like going in. He's like willing to talk about baseball, but not do any research about anything else. So like he'll come up with the names, and he's kind of a bully. So he's just like, we're gonna call this group the Family, and someone else is there, like the science guy is like, actually, no, we shouldn't. Shut up, Poindexter. And then like Vince will giggle, and that'll be the end of it. Like you can't say anything anymore. And then like that guy will just shrug his shoulders and be like, "You'll see." And that's my imagination of how most of the decisions are made in WWE, except like half the writing staff is that sports writer, and you've just got like you know someone is like submission sorority. That's hot.
Right. So, yeah, and then they changed it to Team PCB. PCB is actually this really, really, really carcinogenic, toxic chemical that's been a huge problem in environmental remediation in the U.S. for like 30 years. It's been, I mean, it's constantly in the news. PCB. Um, the idea that like it's not some obscure thing that's only, I mean, it's all over the place. The fact that they were like, turns out submission sorority is kind of a porn thing. Let's change it to Team Cancer. Like it's just they don't.
Yeah, it's really like just Google those things.
I know. I mean, like when you're naming something, you have to like check to see if anyone else has already copyrighted the name, right? You can, and you think you'd run across things like, "Wow, submission sorority turns up some real weird Google hits." Nope.
Yeah, you'd expect that somebody is doing that, but apparently they don't have Google at WWE headquarters.
It might be blocked.
Yeah, probably.
It might be blocked to prevent writers from getting new ideas. Oh.
Yeah, they you don't want them to Google TNA.
That's like the only site they get. Actually, that's the only site that's not blocked. So they always think they're doing much better than they are. They're like, "Well, we're better than that."
Well, okay, you've won me over with your logic.
um, Speaking of logic, we should talk a little bit about the news. As we're recording this podcast, the here in the United States, the Republican candidates debate is happening. It's fun to watch wrestlers tweet about it. But the front runner in the Republican field, the front runner since June, is of course Donald Trump, reality TV star, real estate magnate, and xenophobic bigot, but also member of the WWE Hall of Fame.
It's great. I remember um when Hulk Hogan was kicked out of the WWE Hall of Fame, and you were posting like no racism in the WWE Hall of Fame, and it's like a picture of like Chief Jay Strongbow and like
Right.
Donald Trump, and like
Yeah.
all on the
Right.
same page too, like they're in a line, and it's like Don Morocco, and you're just like, oh well, no racism at all.
Yeah. And at the time, like it just seemed like that nobody noticed that fact. But now there's a petition on change.org, a petition to remove Donald Trump from the WWE Hall of Fame. As of this recording, it has 9,059 signees. They need 941 to reach 10,000. And so this is a wrestling fan saying that Trump should be removed from the WWE Hall of Fame because he's a racist, essentially, because of the racist things he said. And among the people who've signed it, Peter Rosenberg, the New York City hip hop DJ, who also does a wrestling podcast and is a huge wrestling fan. So he signed it. So Boston Herald reporter Chris Villani, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If not, Chris, I apologize. Chris Villani reports that the WWE has told the Boston Herald that, quote, it's not in the business of politics and has no plans to respond to any of the political rhetoric. Which means that the WWE is not taking Trump out of the Hall of Fame and hoping people stop noticing that he's in their stupid Hall of Fame.
Basically, I mean, their Hall of Fame is stupid because there's no hall. But
It's no, yes, it's a website of fame.
yeah, and also, you know, Vince McMahon is a Republican.
Right.
It's just like his wife.
Linda McMahon ran for Senate in Connecticut twice as Republican.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's probably a healthy dose of overlap in the politics of Donald Trump and the McMahon family. So why would they remove him? They like the dude. They had him on their show. It's not like Donald Trump was a great guy a few years ago when he was on WWE TV.
Right. Yeah. And so what do you think about this, though? Do you think that Trump should be removed from the Hall of Fame?
No, because they can put whoever they want in their stupid Hall of Fame. It's like
It's true.
it's the kind of thing where like, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like think he should be like a person, but he has a thing where like, if the WWE put him in there for a reason because he's famous and because he was on their show. I mean, that's it. That's the only reasons he's in there. And that's like the reason half the people are in there.
Right.
Um, so, there's nothing has changed in the sense that like he, those, the reasons he's in there still exist. I mean, because he's an insufferable douchebag doesn't mean he should be taken out of the. I mean, let's be honest. If that was criteria for being removed from a Hall of Fame, there would be no halls of fame.
Yeah, that's true.
Like who would be in there? It'd be like John Cena. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the petition, and it's funny that one of the lines of the petition: Donald Trump has no place in the prestigious WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, Rikishi's in there. How prestigious is it?
Yeah, I mean, not even just like Rikishi's in there. Like, is Coco Beware in there?
Yeah, Coco Beware's in
Yeah,
there.
there's nothing prestigious that it also involves Coco Beware. Let's be honest.
I do. You mentioned John Cena though, and this is something I didn't realize, but John Cena was on the Today Show, and he spoke out against Donald Trump's call to ban all Muslims from the United States.
Yeah, I mean, of course,
John Cena.
of course.
Another reason I like John Cena, you internet dorks.
Yeah. Another. There we go. Check in the column of more reasons to like John Cena.
Um, but from so I do public relations in my daily life, and like for me, the question is, um, when does this become a PR problem for WWE, right? Because so right now, what they're thinking is like, I know exactly what they're thinking, which is please let everyone not notice that Donald Trump is in our stupid made up Hall of Fame. Because the more people notice, the more it becomes a problem for them. And now they just had their biggest star, John Cena, on television saying, "Hey, I can't stand this guy's horrible views on Muslims." And now people are going to start to say things like, "Hey, wait a minute. If you've got your top talent bashing this guy, why do you have him in your Hall of Fame?" If they remove him from the Hall of Fame, then they're going to outrage Donald Trump's followers. And let's be honest, there are a lot of Donald Trump followers in the country.
But the thing with it is also though is that you know they should just say they shouldn't say anything about it. They should leave it as they've just said. Like, we don't care about the politics for this. The reasons we have him in there is unrelated to his politics. That's it. Done. And like, I mean, because no matter what they do now, it's going to offend somebody. And
Right.
let's be honest, the WWE, nobody who's going to complain about Donald Trump being in the Hall of Fame is probably like an avid WWE fan. You know what I mean?
It's probably true.
Like, there's not because let's be honest, there are so much like lower hanging fruit in regards to attacking WWE on various uh, like social issues or political issues, like whatever. There's so much easier stuff than like, oh, you guys have Donald Trump who, like you haven't said you support on all of his views or whatever in your Hall of Fame. Like, who cares? Do people go to the Baseball Hall of Fame and be like, I guess Babe Ruth was probably a racist. You should probably take him out.
Right.
You know, it's not like he's not in the Hall of Fame because of his political views. He's in there because he's well known and was on WWE. That's it. I mean,
Right. Although, like, because the Hall of Fame is a fake made up promotional thing, the question is when does if it starts to detract from its goal, which is just to promote the company, then you have to evaluate like why are we doing this. So to me, this is like it's the risk you run in any Hall of Fame when you enshrine people who are still alive. As the English football manager Brian Clough said, never build statues to living men because they can embarrass you. So if this becomes a thing and you start to have people saying like, once again, people using this as a way to pigeonhole wrestling fans as like, troglodyte, knuckle dragging racists, then after a while, WWE has to say like, we have to get rid of this. But then, of course, you risk outraging the troglodyte, knuckle dragging racists who do make up part of the wrestling fan base, and it's just a mess. To me, the call is simply it's a public relations one. It's just you wait it out until you can't wait it out anymore, and then you have to decide whether or not you're going to keep Donald Trump in your stupid made up Hall of Fame or you're going to take him out of your stupid made up Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Um, I don't even know how I'd feel if they took him out. It's the kind of thing where I feel like, I don't like Donald Trump, so okay, great, take him out. But at the same time, I feel like they shouldn't take him out only on the basis of like, some people complaining about him. Obviously, he's like not a figure that's liked by everyone, including me. But at the same time, you know, should they be kind of bullied into removing him because some people don't like him? I mean, I can understand like um I can understand the thing like taking out Hulk Hogan because it's like the kind of thing that like he said things that basically everybody except people from like Stormfront are going to be like
Right.
universally saying, "Oh no, that's not acceptable."
Right. Also, Hulk Hogan was totally associated with the WWE. Like, the two of them are synonymous. That's much more of an image problem for them than Donald Trump. Whereas I think most people will be surprised to learn A, that the WWE has a Hall of Fame, and B, that Donald Trump is in it.
Yeah, I think you'd be shocked that like there's a wrestling Hall of Fame and then you'd be like Donald Trump had something to do with WWE? When?
Right.
So like it's the kind of thing where it's just kind of obscure. Um so I don't know. I It's kind of a contentious thing, I guess. I don't know. Um but at the same time it's so unimportant that I feel like who cares? Who cares if he's in there or not?
Well, right. I mean, ultimately, like, yeah, I don't give a shit about who's in the WWE Hall of Fame. Um, it's just, it's a ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, some people really care though. That's
Yeah, some people do, and some people just look for reasons to be mad and to like
yeah.
bring stuff up.
I But I'm thinking like some people really care. Like Jim Ross really cares who's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
I mean, he's always talking about it on his podcast, and he's always like
no,
demanding that people be put in. Like the yeah, I mean, talking about some racist related public relations content here. He's always screaming about how he wants the Freebirds in.
I know. Yeah,
Probably, you know, uh,
which is too bad because Terry Gordy and little bastard there should be in, but Michael Hayes is going to keep them out.
yeah, probably not though. They'll probably be in eventually.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, think about it. Michael Hayes still works for them.
no, I know. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Yeah, it's a public relations ploy. I mean, the Hall of Fame exists only for public relations reasons. And the question is, if you induct someone who then becomes a public relations problem, what do you do to rectify it? So I'll be interested to see. 10,000 people who have signed some petition. It's not that big a deal. Although Peter Rosenberg does interview like WWE wrestlers, and you know that's the thing. Like Peter Rosenberg's kind of obscure figure unless you're into hip hop or wrestling. But like when a less obscure figure, like somebody who's on ESPN, or like all it takes is that one celebrity to say like, "Hey, WWE's got to get rid of Donald Trump," and then they have a full blown PR problem on their hands,
Yeah, that's true.
and they can't go back to the thing they told the Herald reporter. We're like, "Oh, we're not going to make political decisions because keeping him in there is a political decision." I mean, like people aren't going to accept that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's it's silly because I mean, for all the reasons we've been saying, like it's not an actual place.
Right, you can't go
Yeah,
there.
like we've been to the Wrestling Hall of Fame. The only Wrestling Hall of Fame I accept as the Wrestling Hall of Fame in New York.
Well, and now in Texas.
Now in Texas, what is that?
You didn't hear about
No.
this? We didn't talk about this? The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in Amsterdam, New York is moving to Texas.
Wait, they're moving to Texas?
They're moving to Texas.
The one from New York?
The one we went to.
I thought they were just moving to a different city in New York. In New York.
Nope. Wichita Falls, Texas.
Oh wow, jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good thing we got there when we did.
What are those guys gonna do in Texas? I guess sit in their store. But
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess we should talk about this earlier. Yeah, the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame is moving from Amsterdam, New York to Wichita Falls, Texas. Um, which is which is kind of a bummer because it was I mean it's a really cool place and it was close by to me anyway. But I'm glad I got to see it at least, 2 times.
yeah, that's I had read that article. I remember reading it and thinking like, oh, that's good. At least they're getting out of that town. But I assumed it was in another place in New York. I
Nope.
I don't know why. But okay, I guess they're moving across the country to Texas. Probably a bad decision.
Yeah, there's a couple other Pro Wrestling Hall of Fames, Halls of Fame, I guess.
Halls of
Well,
Fame, Tom.
Halls of Fame,
Grammatically correct. Or get out.
Whoppers Junior.
Whoppers
Uh,
Jr. That's
there's one in Iowa and there's one in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which I've been meaning to check out. I think I can convince Mark to go. That's a hike from where I live, but it's in a mall. So that one might not be that great, but we'll see. I'm not going to the one in Iowa. That's for damn
well.
sure.
Well, you say it might not be that great because it's in a mall, but like the one in New York, as you know, it looks like the only remaining storefront in a rundown strip mall or something. Like it looks like
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's true.
it look
From the
yeah,
outside.
it looked like it would be awful, but you go in, you're just like, wow, this is really awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's true.
I
So maybe the thing in Allentown will be great. It'll be the new Hall of Fame. And when you come back to the States, we'll have to go to Allentown.
it seems like a quite a hike.
Yeah, it's worth. Well, then we could also go to see wrestling in Philadelphia. There's always wrestling in Philadelphia.
I guess that's true. But the other thing with that is, it's like I wonder how they will manage that. Like, have you like figured out how the Wrestling Hall of Fame in New York was sustaining itself?
No, I don't, because it was free entry.
Yeah, it's not like they have a shop there and then there's like the Wrestling
No.
Hall of Fame, and it's not like they're charging you to get into the Hall of Fame to see the stuff. I mean, it's like going into a store that has no products to sell and doesn't charge you anything for anything that's happening there. Like how does it exist?
Maybe that's why they're moving to Texas.
How would the moving costs affect the not no lack of income? I don't.
Some guy in Texas was like, "We'll just charge for admission." They're like, "Brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know.
You take this over and run
I
it."
like that though. I like the idea of. I hope it just gets better, even though I'll never get to see it. 'Cause-
I know. Yeah. I don't even know where. I mean, when I heard it was moving to Wichita Falls, I was like, "Oh, is that Kansas?" No, it's Texas. I don't even know where it is.
yeah, I thought it was in New York. So
Um. Well, all right. So Donald Trump. We've talked about Donald Trump. You brought up this news item about our old friend Jim Cornette. So tell us what this is.
okay, this happened like a week ago, and we would have talked about it last week, but we didn't have a show. And this is like Jim Cornette hates comedy wrestling. That's basically the idea of it. And anybody who follows Jim Cornette on Twitter or listens to his podcast knows that he hates things that are not like serious wrestling. So like the Young Bucks did that thing where they like super kicked the 8-year-old or whatever. Um, Jim Cornette hated that, and he was, went all off on the Young Bucks, and he still hates the Young Bucks. Still brings them up about like he referred to them recently as like the kids' table of the Bullet Club or whatever.
Right.
And and then like just recently there was the viral clip. I'm sure if you're a wrestling fan and you were friends and family who are not wrestling fans know that you're a wrestling fan, you must have gotten this video of
Yep.
Joey Ryan versus Don Chocodino in a DDT Pro, doing the dick spot, which is basically like Joey Ryan flips Don Chocodino with the power of his dick. It's a goofy comedy spot, and it's funny. It's a funny spot, but
I think it's now being called the Magic
the
Johnson.
Magic Johnson. And Joey Ryan's been doing it recently on indie shows. I've seen videos of him doing it against other people now, and but it's a funny spot. I'm sure you've seen it if you're a wrestling fan because it's all over the place. And like people who are not wrestling fans that know I like wrestling have sent me this clip like 30 times. So I'm sure that's happened to everybody else too. But Jim Cornette, in very Jim Cornette style, knew that there was a comedy spot, and he didn't watch the video, but he posted a clip from like just the screenshot of it, saying like, "Oh, like I didn't watch it, but it looks like Joey Ryan enjoys shoving his cock in men's faces," and like. Joe. Yeah, it's not exactly like a great tweet. And Jerry Ryan replied like, "You're kind of a piece of shit. That's really homophobic or whatever." And that was some big controversy there. And Jim Cornette, responded to that saying like, I hadn't watched the video and I didn't realize like he's grabbing his dick or whatever and he's doing the flip or whatever. I didn't see it. I just saw the screenshot and I couldn't see the hand, so I didn't know what was going on. And he was just like, yeah, I still think it's fucking stupid. And that's basically it.
Right.
That's basically it. He's saying like, it wasn't meant to be homophobic. It's just like, I had a screenshot. That's all I had. So like, I didn't know what the spot was. And I still hate it. And I still think it's fucking stupid. I think Joey Ryan is a no talent hack or whatever. But like,
Right.
so basically that's the kind of, controversy that went on between those two. I don't know. I think that's the end of it. I don't think there's been any response on either side after that. But so that was a thing. But so this like brings me to a topic I wanted to talk about, which is like the split between people who are like the kind of Jim Cornette mindset, where like you can't have like anything that's not like like you have to protect the business still.
Right.
And then you have people like Joey Ryan who want to have goofy comedy matches versus women or whatever. These are things. And there is like a, kind of a marked like line between those people because if you look at it on Twitter, and I'm actually following both of those people on Twitter, Jim Cornette and Joey Ryan, and like you'll see the people like retweeting to them or tweeting at those guys about the topic. And like Jim Cornette has all these people saying like this spot disgusts me, I hate this. And then you'll have like all people tweeting at Joey Ryan how awesome the spot is. So like there's like a real kind of demarcation between people who think about this. And I think like a lot of the thing has to do with the context of the spot, which I think a lot of people don't know because like you just see the video and you don't know who the other wrestler is unless you're like a fan of DDT wrestling for some reason. And you probably don't know what DDT Pro is, and you probably like don't understand what's going on. All you just see is this dude overpowering another dude with the power of his dick. It's a funny spot, like even if you don't know any of the context, but like it's easy to like look at him and be like, this is stupid. Why would you do this on a wrestling show? But you have to think about things like, first, what is DDT Pro? DDT Pro is like a comedy promotion. Virtually right. Every match is a comedy match. So like when you think about it, like having this kind of spot at a DDT show is like one of many comedy spots that are happening during the show. And so it's not out of place. It's not the kind of thing where like you're on like a standard like indie wrestling show where there's like going to be Nick Gage is going to come out and smash somebody in the head with a bottle. Right. There's not going to be anything like that at a DDT Pro show. Everything is going to have a comedy spot in it. So it makes sense for it to be at that show. Also, it's not originally Joey Ryan's idea for the spot. The other guy in in the promotion, Don Chocodino, who we talked about on the podcast before, who is like kind of a aggressively homosexual character. I mean,
Yeah.
it's what he does. Like it's his gimmick. He like I want to say his gimmick is that people are afraid of him because he wants to violently sexually assault them. And like all of his spots are goofy things where he'll like knock people like to be wobbly until like they'll fall headfirst into his shorts. Like he opens his shorts up really wide in the front so their head will fall in. That's like part of his character. It's a goofy kind of gay panic character. He's like one of the most popular guys in the promotion actually. So like that's his character. So like for him to be doing a dick grabbing spot like is like part of his character. And it was his idea that like because Joey Ryan has a giant powerful American cock or whatever, he would be able to overpower Don Chocodino's cock grab or whatever with the power of his cock. And
Right.
they thought like, oh, that's goofy and fun. Let's do that. And that's what happened. So like you have this kind of whole setup where like, you have the character who it would be part of his character to do the cock grab. You have Joey Ryan who is like, kind of a goofy character himself. You're in DDT Pro Wrestling, which is like this Japanese promotion that is meant to be goofy. It's like comedy spot matches turned up to 11. That's basically all of the matches in DDT. And you put it all together and you have this kind of viral video now. And without the context, if you just see the video and you're Jim Cornette, you think like, this fucking sucks. I hate this. Because it's not like, it's not like Memphis Wrestling or whatever.
Right. And I think it's important to mention that like the stuff. First of all, we should put Memphis aside for a second because Memphis
is the home of crazy, goofy comedy wrestling.
Yeah, if there was one territory in the United States that was like DDT and the weirder aspects of Japanese wrestling, it was Memphis. Memphis had a wrestling Batman. Memphis had a wrestling Mummy. Memphis had a wrestling Wolfman. I mean, forget Memphis for a second. But Jim Cornette came up at a time when wrestling was it's a very specific time in wrestling history that Jim Cornette holds on to as like what all wrestling has always been like, and that's not the case. There have been a lot of times when wrestling was just as like goofy, although sort of less, PG-13 than the dick spot. But I mean, you think about Freddie Blassie, who was this icon of the kayfabe days, right? Freddie Blassie was a huge, huge star in Japan in the 50s, and his gimmick was that he was a vampire, right? He would file his canine teeth in Japan and pretend to bite people on the neck, and he was the vampire Fred Blassie. That was his gimmick. Like, that is not protecting the business. No one is a real vampire. Please, if you're a vampire, please don't complain. Don't
Please don't kill me if you're a vampire.
Please don't kill me if you're a vampire. There's always been stuff like that in wrestling, and I for one like the comedy matches because they sort of liven things. I like to go to a show. Beyond Wrestling is a really good example of a promotion that does this, where not every match is the same. Like it's not like a deathmatch tournament where every match is the same, and it's not like one of those like kind of like painfully earnest indie promotions where everything is like an attempt to be PWG or something. If you go to a Beyond show, there's going to be a comedy match, maybe two. There's going to be like it's a couple high flying matches, maybe a hardcore match, some like really serious like grapple fuck matches. And that's fine. Like that has a place in it. People like it. And that ultimately is the only standard by which wrestling gimmicks and angles and tactics should be judged. Do people like it? Does it get over? If it does, it works. If not, try something else. I think Jim Cornette has kind of forgotten that in just holding on to this one era of wrestling.
Yeah, I think that seems true. And I think like the thing with it is like a lot of people want to say like, oh, Jim Cornette, he's out of touch. He doesn't understand wrestling now. But like I don't think that's true in the sense that he still has a really good mind for wrestling. And when he does like analysis of things and talks about things, a lot of the time I find myself saying, yeah, that's a much better idea than what actually happened. But, at the same time, there are things like this where he just like seems like way out of like touch with what is actually happening. So like, I don't want to say he's like always wrong about things or always out of touch with like how wrestling is, but sometimes he is. And I think this is like one of those cases where I feel like he doesn't want to accept that there's other types of wrestling that people can enjoy and might,
Right.
that kind of thing might bring people to the show. And like, as just like a comparison, like I haven't been to many other promotions besides DDT because I like going to DDT. I'll be going to DDT next month. But like half the crowd of DDT is women. I doubt half the crowd would be women if we were talking about a kind of hardcore promotion or something. Like
No, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Right. No, you're absolutely correct.
I'm sure the shows Atsushi Onita always puts on are good, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that the amount of women in the crowd is probably a bit less.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Or Combat Zone for that matter.
Yeah.
Or any wrestling promotion in the United States.
Yeah. Well, the thing with it is that like, man, I've never seen so many women at a wrestling show. When I go to a DDT show, it's like half, more than half, maybe. I don't even know. It's like there's a lot. And it's the kind of thing where like maybe people like wrestling that's not serious, and it's a different audience.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. And I think the whole, to me, the notion that sort of like people not protecting the business is what killed wrestling or whatever. I honestly think that social media has had a lot more to do with the way people have changed their wrestling, the way they relate to wrestling. Like, in 1983 in Texas in World Class, like people didn't think it was real, right? But they didn't know much about the wrestlers other than what they saw on TV or at the world famous Dallas Sportatorium. So it was easier to suspend your disbelief and believe that the Von Erichs were like these, all-American brothers who were just there to like play fair and have a good time, and they were always being thwarted by these bad guys because there weren't people on like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and stuff giving you these glimpses into their lives. Like it was easier to be a fan in that old-fashioned way, and now it's harder. And I don't think like the end of kayfabe, because kayfabe is never really like people have known wrestling as fake since the 20s. I think it's just that there's more ways to access people's personalities and you know them more now than you did before. And in that environment, things like comedy wrestling work more than they would have. Although there were definitely comedy matches in the past. Let's not kid ourselves. There have always been comedy matches as part of wrestling shows. And anytime you've seen does not happen very much anymore, thankfully, midget wrestling, right? In the US, I'm not talking about mini wrestling in Mexico, which is its own thing. But like in a midget wrestling match with like three midgets like beating up one big guy, like that's not protecting the business either, and it was fine in the old days.
Yeah, it was not. I mean, King Kong Bundy versus six midgets or whatever is not exactly like protecting the business.
It is not.
It's not exactly a serious wrestling match.
No, exactly. And I think sometimes guys like Cornette forget that or sort of willfully choose to selectively remember what they like about wrestling. And like we were just talking about, like, Jim Cornette knows more about Memphis than just about anyone. And Memphis was a clown car. Like, there was a lot of goofy stuff in Memphis.
Yeah, well, like think of it this way, like the whole thing with Jerry Lawler and oh, damn it. Why can't I remember anybody's name, Tom?
I don't know. Jackie Fargo?
No.
Terry Funk?
No, the comedian.
Oh, Andy Kaufman.
And the whole thing with Andy Kaufman was like judged too goofy and unreal by Vince McMahon Sr. to be in WWE, so it ended up in Memphis.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. And where incidentally it did huge business and sold out the Mid-South Coliseum multiple times.
Yeah, like, exactly.
And that's why it's so successful, because like you had the very old school Vince McMahon Sr. who's like, that's not, we don't want to do that. That's not, we're very serious here with Captain Lou Albano and the Grand Wizard. And so they went to Memphis and they drew huge houses and they went on national TV, and it's one of the most fondly remembered wrestling angles of all time, not just by wrestling fans but by regular people. It can work, and it has worked in different eras. I think it's, you're right. Jim Cornette's a very smart guy. He knows probably more about the business than just about anyone alive. But it is frustrating to see him kind of get drawn. And also, by the way, not in any way a homophobic guy. He's very supportive of gay rights, gay marriage. Like, he's repeatedly talked about this, but he just lets himself be baited and says stupid shit on Twitter all the time, and he comes out looking bad.
Yeah, basically that's it. That's the thing. Like I don't. Uh, the reason like I want to bring that up is because I think like he's definitely not a homophobic guy because he's always talking about how he supports gay marriage and stuff, and he's like uh paradoxically like he's super liberal. Like he's constantly talking about liberal things and how much he hates conservatives and he like hates religion and like I mean listen to his podcast. It's crazy about all that stuff.
It's one of my favorite things because he has these really old school fans because he's Mr. Old School. But like when he starts tweeting like about how much he loves Bernie Sanders and stuff, like it's like the old school fans go nuts. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, so the thing with it is like, he's not I mean, I don't want to jump on the oh yeah, Jim Cornette's a homophobic asshole because I don't think that's true. But like I do think like he doesn't understand the context of what was happening. And he's kind of a little bit unwilling to accept anything that's not his kind of ideal version of what wrestling should be. So
Right, and that's such like an old school babyface thing to say to someone like you love standing over someone with your balls in his face and like the crowd's boo, because but like that now it just makes you look dumb,
yeah,
you know.
that's the thing. So that happened. It was a total thing, and I mean I did write a post about it on the Tumblr, and so that's up if you want to read it. It's just like basically what I've just said though, so you probably don't have to read it, but it just gives
You should read it anyway.
just
You should read
just
it.
gives the context for like the promotion and the spot and the people in it, which makes it a little bit more palatable, I think, even if you don't like the spot. Like
I agree.
why would you do that? Like, because I think a lot of people just don't understand, like, why would you do that at a wrestling show? Like, people who just don't like that kind of thing. And I think, like, in the case, like, why wouldn't you do that at a DDT show is, like, a better question because, like, it's basically all the matches.
Yeah. Speaking of old school wrestling, I want to talk briefly about the new old school shows that have been added to the WWE network, which you will be able to enjoy, I believe, next month because that's when it's coming to Japan.
Yeah, apparently it's coming to Japan on January 5th. And I'm really excited about this because, like, Um, my main reason for wanting the network is to watch all those old school shows, and now that there's so much more of them, I'm extra excited because if you'll remember when I was in the U.S., we were driving around to all these stores looking for the AWA box set that I never found.
Right.
And now there's AWA shows on the network.
Yes, they like with no fanfare earlier this month, the WWE Network, because they had some old WWF shows, a few old WCW shows like Clash of the Champions and Nitro, but that's not that old. Oh, it's 20 years old now. That's horrifying to think about. And some old world class shows along with ECW. And but the WWE tape library is so extensive. They own everything from AWA. They own Championship Wrestling from Florida. They own ICW, the old Outlaw territory that the Poffos owned. They own tons and tons of stuff. Mid South. They own all the Jim Crockett Promotions. I mean, they have a huge. They basically own everything, with a few exceptions here and there. And so people were always wondering when is new stuff going to show up. And this month they added all of NWA World Championship Wrestling's Saturday edition from the November 2nd, 1985 episode to the September 26th, 1987 episode. So this is like the high water mark of like Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen and their feud with Dusty Rhodes and that whole era of NWA wrestling. They added episodes of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which is interesting because that was Jim Cornette's promotion in the early 90s that is seen as kind of like a big influence on ECW and other things. They added episodes of Mid-South Wrestling, and I'm such an AWA fan. I was so excited. So far, they just have episodes, a few, and this is just a few here and there, episodes of AWA Wrestling from 86, 87, and 88. Now, which is not the AWA's finest era, right? That would be the 70s. But I'm not even sure what tape exists from the 70s. But I have been like loving this, just watching like Smoky Mountain Wrestling from the early 90s when Chris Jericho and Lance Storm were the Thrill Seekers, a tag team.
Yes.
And I was watching some. The other thing I like about it too is watching some AWA, and I think what they're doing is each one of these releases is to highlight a particular wrestler or stable. So I think the reason they put the NWA stuff up is to highlight the Four Horsemen. I think Smoky Mountain is for Jericho, and I think the AWA is to highlight Shawn Michaels because there's a bunch of Shawn Michaels matches in there.
Yeah.
Before he was
there was like the
one of
Rockers were on there.
Yeah, the Rockers are on there, and actually they have his very first TV match on AWA when he was just Shawn Michaels, and it was spelled SEAN. And I was watching that. It was from 1986. It was in Las Vegas in some casino, and it's really remarkable. I remember watching the AWA as a kid. A lot of memories came back with their blue canvas and everything. But it's remarkable that back then there were still really different styles in the promotions, and the Southern style was distinctive in NWA, or at least in Crockett Promotions. WWF had its own style, and AWA really, like, there's a lot of amateur wrestling moves. Like it's amazing how much stuff. It's just mat wrestling, and there might be like one drop kick and like one splash from the top rope per match. There wasn't a lot of what we consider high spots. It's a lot more like chain wrestling and occasionally like Olympic style suplexes. So it's fascinating to go back and kind of see now sort of there's like an indie style and a WWE style, and there's not much in between or much different. Except for like, well, there's hardcore and there's this and that, but it's not like it's hard to say like, oh, AIW has its own style and PWG has its own style. It's because they use the same people, the top indie promotions, so it's pretty similar where you go. And WWE has kind of its in-house style, so it's interesting to go back and watch and see like, oh, this was completely different because this was how Vern Gagne wanted people to wrestle. And so when you came to the AWA, you had to wrestle like people in the AWA. And then when you went to Mid-Atlantic, you had to brawl more and you had to wrestle more in the Southern style. And if you went to New York, you had to do that kind of WWF style. The other thing too is, man, the AWA jobbers. I'm now obsessed with one of them. There's very little information about him on the internet. He's wearing a mask. He's all in white. He's wearing a mask. He's really out of shape, and he was introduced as Bun Boy Barton.
Bun Boy Barton, good stuff.
Bun Boy Barton, and he and his partner Troy Patterson come out and lose to the Long Riders. So all I could find is like some old wrestling message board from like 2005 where someone says, "Does anyone remember Bun Boy Barton?" And someone described him as a cult figure in Illinois, which is
great.
But it's great. There's so much stuff, and it's just like a hint of what the WWE has and what they're capable of putting out there. It's just like whetting my appetite for more stuff. I really, really want to see Championship Wrestling from Florida stuff with Kevin Sullivan's Devil Worshipper gimmick. They have it.
I really want to see that too. I really want, like, I'm pretty excited for all that stuff, like to finally be able to watch it. So when I finally am able to get the network, I will definitely that'll be the first stuff I watch. Like even when we were at your house watching the network in the summer, like all the stuff I was watching was like, stuff from the early 80s, the WWE stuff at least. And I just like that. I just like that era of wrestling. And I think the AWA stuff is like going to be really good, I think. So pretty excited to see that. Because AWA stuff, I was like previously, I was just like watching whatever clips I could find on YouTube.
Yeah, and like there's some good stuff out there, but it's kind of, you really have to sift through a lot of crap to get to the good stuff. Or you'll find matches that are truncated or things like with terrible sound quality or terrible. That's what's killing me with ICW, which was the Paphos promotion. There's so much good stuff in ICW, and they did a Devil Worshipper gimmick before Kevin Sullivan did, and Randy Savage's promos in it are incredible. Like they're even more intense than his WWF promos, because I think at some point in WWF he became like knowingly over the top and a little cartoonish. In ICW, his promos, it's just like a huge, crazy, scary guy. Like he's great, but the quality of the YouTube clips is so awful. It looks like somebody like just taped it on a VCR and then like filmed their TV while the VCR was playing and then uploaded that. It's just garbage. But so I'm very excited to see more of that stuff in like a usable, like semi high quality format.
That'd be good. I'm just excited to see all that stuff because it's been like a really long time since I've been able to see any AWA stuff, and it would be good to see whole shows. I mean, haven't been able to do that
Yeah,
since like I saw it on TV.
yeah, and that's the great part too. Like on YouTube, you're often just watching like it'll be like a compilation of Nick Bockwinkel promos, which is great, but it's good to see things in context.
Yeah, and plus, like it's like you were saying, it's like good to see the jobber matches.
Yeah, because when else are you going to see? Like, there's no one who remembers Bun Boy Barton except perhaps in Illinois, where he was a cult figure apparently. But like guys who never, because that was back when. I mean, some people moved around, but there were still guys who just spent their careers in AWA or down in NWA and like never moved around. Especially like the jobbers and enhancement talent. And then when you see them, you're like, this is a man. This is like a whole new world of bad wrestlers.
Yeah, it's good stuff, and I'm glad that that stuff is coming out on the network. Um, I saw that the ECW stuff is slow coming because they have to edit out all the music.
Yeah.
That's always bad. Um, it, I mean, I know we talked about this before, but like, man, having having Sandman come out must be awful,
Oh, I know. Yeah, and Rob Van
and
Dam,
Rob Van
same
Dam
thing.
also, yeah, because their music and their entrances are so long, but also like without the actual music, like it's gonna make like the whole thing be really weird. Crowd is gonna be like singing along to something totally unrelated. The it's gonna be just weird.
It looks surreal. Yeah, it's weird. It's like why is the crowd singing along? Why is the crowd singing a Pantera song when this generic '90s rock track is playing?
Yeah.
Also, the Sandman was like much like Gorgeous George. The Sandman was 75% entrance. Like he didn't have a lot of good matches, you know. Unlike Gorgeous George, who could actually wrestle, Sandman was he wasn't about the wrestling.
But there's the other problem of like basically any New Jack match.
Right.
Be-
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. The New Jack matches because it's like generic rap beat number seven playing not just for the entrance but for the whole match.
yeah, because with New Jack, his music never turned off.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a decision I'm sure that someone regrets now. Some like poor sound engineer at the WWE has to overlay the because like, they have to do it so you can still hear the commentary.
Yeah, man, it's so bad. So do they have the similar problems in any of the other promotions that are on the network?
No, I haven't noticed that. Like AWA, all those shows were on ESPN, and so like the entrances were basically cut out. It would just kind of zoom in just as the ring announcements were being made. And the NWA the championship edition thing is like it's all in studio.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's that
that's right.
weird. Yeah, so it's like they do the interviews and then they have like that ring just set up in a studio with a bunch of fans around it. Um, so yeah, they haven't had quite the same challenges that ECW. It's always ECW. Always got to make problems.
ECW causing problems. That's yeah, pretty standard. So yeah, that's a uh man, yeah, they had that they they had the what's it called? The Stampede Wrestling up for like a couple days and then it got taken down
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like the weirdest clause in the like video rights for Stampede, which apparently like WWE has rights to Stampede Wrestling except for matches with Bret Hart, which Bret Hart owns the footage for the matches with Bret Hart.
That is bizarre, and it was disappointing because it was like Stampede Wrestling from 1978, like super old, incredible. Yeah, I hope they get that ironed out at some point. Bret Hart seems like the type to hold a grudge, though. He seems like the kind of guy it might be somewhat difficult to convince him to change his
What do you
mind.
mean, Bret Hart being bitter? That
I mean, I've just heard. I just heard.
that never happens. Uh,
Um, so I think that's it for planned. We should talk about what we have coming up.
do we have something coming up?
Do you have any shows coming up you're going to in
Yeah,
Japan?
I'm going to see the Japan's first taste of the world's cutest tag team.
I'm so jealous.
It's Joey Ryan and Candice LeRae coming to DDT on January 3rd, and I'll be going. I had to get the tickets sold out immediately. It's like a special price for the show, so like normally tickets are about 4,000 yen, which is like a little more than $30. But for this show, all the tickets, like every ticket, even front row seats, which are normally like about $90, were 2,000 yen, which is like like $16 or $17 or something. So the tickets sold out immediately, and I had to buy tickets online from somebody who couldn't go to the show, and I had to buy a bunch of extra tickets, so I have like 3 tickets now. But I think I found people to go with me, so that's probably good. But beyond that, I don't know who else is on the show. Don Chocodino will be there, but he's not wrestling Joey Ryan.
It's too bad.
But I don't. They've like not announced the full card yet, so who knows? But that's probably it for me for upcoming. I mean, although I could probably go see wrestling every day, it's prohibitively expensive.
I'm very jealous because I've never seen the world's cutest tag team, and I love them.
You're like their biggest fan.
Yeah, I'm full of outrage. I'm going to see Beyond Wrestling, which they're having their last show at Fet Music in Providence, and I tweeted at Drew Cordero, the promoter, do a little research for this podcast. I'm a reporter, and I said, "Hey, do you have a new home in Providence?" And he said they're working on it. But it's going to be it's the Sunday after Christmas, December 27th, and it's the main event is Dijak versus Tommaso Ciampa, which should be fantastic. Also on the show, Chris Dickinson against Kimber Lee, which would be good. Sami Callihan, who was until days ago, trading in NXT as Solomon Crowe, will be wrestling someone. His opponent has not yet been determined. And then there's going to be, speaking of people I've wanted to see for a long time, there's a tag match. It's the Hit Squad versus Homicide and Low Ki.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never seen Low Ki, but I remember him from like 15 years ago when I was getting into indie wrestling for the first time. And he's still at it. So that should be interesting. Low Ki and Homicide, 2 old dudes against the Hit Squad, 2 old dudes. Although I say they're old, but they're basically our age. They're like in their late 30s.
Yeah, were they? Like Low Ki was basically in TNA forever, right?
Yep.
I mean, he was in the whatever that group with Hernandez.
Yes, that's right. He was in TNA forever. He briefly in WWE, but yeah, Ring of Honor and TNA. He's one of those like early Ring of Honor guys who like with Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe and those guys who were like, and Mike Quackenbush actually, who then went on to Chikara and being kind of a weird dude. They remember like when we were late 90s, early 2000s when we were really into wrestling, like those guys were always like the top indie stars.
Yep. Well, Low Ki and AJ Styles. And
that's right.
Yeah. And then various local dudes.
It's yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I went to see with a couple of friends, went to see some indie wrestling in Enfield, Connecticut, scenic Enfield, Connecticut on Saturday. It was us versus them wrestling, which in the course of the event changed its name to Blitzkrieg Pro Wrestling.
During the event?
During the event, they changed their name to Blitzkrieg Pro Wrestling, which is that was a new one on me. So it was decent. It was the highlight was the main event was a tag team match, the Batiri from Chikara against the Minutemen, and that was really good. But it was in this Whirly Ball arena. Do you know what Whirly Ball is?
No clue.
Yeah, I didn't either. Whirly Ball is it's described as a cross between lacrosse, basketball, and bumper cars.
What?
And I guess
that doesn't sound real to me.
I guess you drive around in a bumper car, but it's not a bumper car. It's called a whirly bug, which is it's like a bumper car. And you try to like you have sticks maybe, and you try to throw a ball in like a hoop. And it's I was reading about because I didn't know what it was. I was reading about it online. It's like you can only play it in like 5 cities it only exists like in 5 cities in the U.S. And it's like Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, and like a couple big cities, and then Enfield, Connecticut. Like it's the only place you can play it if you're not in a major metro area is Enfield, Connecticut, which is so fitting because Enfield's a very strange town. And Yeah, so we went to see Whirly Ball. Well, we didn't go to see Whirly Ball. God knows. We went to the Whirly Ball arena and there was a wrestling show. Um, and they changed their name halfway through the show.
That's weird. Like there's like sports like that I remember from Connecticut. Not Whirly Ball because I never. I want to say I never heard of it, but the name sounds familiar enough that I think I probably have heard of it and just blocked it out of my head. But there's things like Highlight that was like big in Connecticut.
Yep. Yep.
Is Highlight big anywhere?
No, well, I mean, Basque Country, I guess, is where it was, where it originated.
You remember there were like TV commercials for Highlight all the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Um,
Yep.
I wonder, like, because this people listening to this podcast are not just from Connecticut. Obviously, probably none of them are from Connecticut. So, I wonder, have any of you guys heard of Highlight before? Because it was like kind of thing, like probably if you were in Connecticut in the '80s, you know what Highlight is because
You definitely
there
do.
was TV commercials for it all the time, and there was like an arena. I don't know where it was. Was it at the Civic Center? Highlight?
No, it was there was like a venue for it in East Hartford, like on 84, which is now I think like a racquetball club or something. But yeah, the Highlight venue, one of the Highlight venues. I think there was one out by Bradley too. There were like multiple places to play Highlight in Connecticut, or where you could go and watch Highlight being played.
And like I feel like we should spell Highlight for people so that they know what it is, but I don't remember how to spell it. It's like Jailai maybe.
Yeah, Jaialai,
Oh, okay.
but it's pronounced Highlight.
Yeah. So that's the thing. If you don't know about it, look it up. It's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like some kind of ball game with rattan hooks on your hands. I don't know what it is, but
It is strange.
it's kind of strange, but it was a thing and it was popular enough in Connecticut to be something. And like I always thought of it. I've never seen it, but like in the '80s there was all those sports that were like, I mean, I'm saying sports, but like pro wrestling, and then there would be like on TV, like after pro wrestling, there'd be like roller derby,
Yeah.
and you could see it on TV. You'd watch it on TV. Watching roller derby on TV, it sounds like an insane proposition, but it was a thing that happened, and I had imagined as a kid that Highlight would soon be on TV, just like roller derby and pro wrestling. But alas, Highlight did not catch on outside of Connecticut. I imagine at least because I don't really know, but I can assume that nobody is because there's not like Highlight at the Olympics or anything.
No, and there was also like a horrible Highlight like scandal.
Is there a Highlight scandal?
There were like murders. It was like a mob. Highlight was somehow there was somebody involved in Highlight who was connected to the Boston mob.
Wow, I didn't know all this Highlight stuff. We should make a Highlight podcast.
Yeah, the guy who owned like there was the World Highlight League, and he somehow got like mixed up with Whitey Bulger, the Boston mobster, and he was murdered in 1981. And over like some like skimming or gambling that was like Highlight had kind of a rogue scandal. Highlight had like a that tarnished the popularity of Highlight such as it was.
That's why it's gone now.
That's why it's gone. Yeah, because Highlight it was just too associated with a criminal element.
That's bizarre. I wonder if there was like bitter professional Highlight players who were just like could have been a contender.
Yeah, that's right. Like the shoeless Joe Jackson of Highlight.
That's
Bitter.
it always it has like Highlight in my memory has a very pro wrestling feel to it. Not because like it's like pro wrestling, but because like the video quality was the same, and I'd always see commercials for it around the same time as I was watching pro wrestling and roller derby.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like you go back to watch those AWA shows on the network, and like they were on ESPN, right? And it was just one of those weird things that you'd see on like darts would be on TV and bowling.
Yeah, darts, bowling, fishing,
Duck pin bowling.
duck pin bowling. Yeah, another thing that's like not really outside of
Yeah, outside New England, nobody knows what duck pin bowling is.
unless you're in Maryland, maybe.
Yeah, Maryland. Yeah, Maryland, New England, and like Nova Scotia. That's it.
So right, if you've made it this far into the podcast, since we've gone so far off the wrestling
Yeah, if you have
train,
any questions about Woolly Ball or highlight murders,
if you know anything about highlight, duckpin bowling, or have a good roller derby story you want to tell us, comment on the video.
Yeah. Comment on the video, or you can tweet at me. I'm at TJ Breen.
And I am at XCornMuffinX, which is also the name of this YouTube channel where you're listening to this.
And if you want to check us out on Tumblr, where we post lots of wrestling content on our blogs, you can look at mine at closetofanxiety.tumblr.com.
And I am at Hakujinjo at tumblr.com, which is that thing. I think I just said the name wrong, but you know how Tumblr works. Just type in the name.
Just type in the name, and you can find what he wrote about the Jim Cornette thing. And if you go to the Closet of Anxiety, you'll find screenshots of Bun Boy Barton.
There are screenshots of Bun Boy Barton. They're fittingly blurry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, much like his career, except in Illinois where he was a cult figure. All right, well, this was good, a good return. We'll be back next week, and it's the week before Christmas, right?
Yeah, week before Christmas.
Holy cow! And wow, my goodness, the year is.
So next week we'll actually I think the video will come out on the 23rd, maybe like the day before Christmas. That's
we're gonna have to we'll maybe do, or maybe the week after we'll do like a year-end review of the best of 2015, the worst of 2015. That's like our own Slammy Awards.
Yeah, except with less goofiness.
Right, or more goofiness.
You couldn't get more goofy, Tim.
No, that's a good point.
Slammy Awards. Yeah, let's get out of here. Slammy Awards have killed my mood.
All right, see you next week, everybody.
See you guys next time.